in Seoul. There's a kind of loneliness that only exists after midnight. Not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of having nobody to tell about your day. The loneliness that waits quietly inside small apartments, in untouched cups of coffee, in unread messages, and in hearts that secretly hope someone, somewhere, is thinking about them. Ha-eun knew that loneliness well, 26 years old, living alone in a tiny apartment overlooking the endless lights of Seoul. Every morning looked the same. Wake up, rush to work, smile because she had to, return home exhausted, eat convenience store food, take a shower, then sit quietly beside her bedroom window, watching strangers live lives that seemed happier than hers. She wasn't unhappy, not exactly. She simply felt invisible. Her co-workers liked her. Her neighbors greeted her politely, but nobody truly knew her. Nobody asked how she was really doing. And after a while, she stopped expecting anyone to. Across the city, someone else couldn't sleep either. Min-jae, 28 years old, a freelance architect. His apartment was larger, his life looked more successful, but silence sounded the same. No matter how expensive the walls were, his parents lived in another city. Most of his friends were busy building families of their own, and lately, the only voice filling his apartment was the television. That night, neither of them planned to meet anyone. It was simply another sleepless night. 2:17 a.m. Ha-eun lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Sleep refused to come. She reached for her phone, not because she expected something, only because silence felt heavier without it. She opened a social messaging app, scrolling, reading, closing, opening it again, anything to make time move faster. At almost the same moment, Min-jae sat on his balcony with a cup of warm tea. He looked across the glowing skyline, then unlocked his phone. Without thinking, he opened the same app. A random recommendation appeared. One profile. No profile picture. Just one simple quote. Some nights are louder than others. He smiled slightly. For reasons he couldn't explain, he tapped message. Ha-eun's phone vibrated. Unknown sender. She opened it. One sentence. Can't sleep either? She stared at the screen, then smiled without realizing it. It was the first genuine smile she'd worn all week. She typed slowly. Is it that obvious? 3 little dots appeared almost instantly, only to someone who's awake at 2:17 in the morning. She laughed softly, a quiet laugh that echoed through her empty apartment. The conversation lasted only 20 minutes. Nothing important. Favorite foods. Favorite weather, coffee or tea, books, movies, simple things, yet somehow neither wanted to end it. Eventually, Ha-eun glanced at the clock, nearly 3 in the morning. I should probably sleep. Min-jae replied almost immediately, me too. A pause. Then, good night, Han. She blinked. He had remembered her name. Good night, Min-jae. The next night, 2:17 a.m., her phone vibrated. Still awake? She smiled before she even realized she was smiling. You too? Looks like we have the same bad habit. That became their routine every night, around the same time. Neither planned it. They always found each other. Days became weeks. Weeks slowly became months. The conversations grew longer, lighter, warmer. Sometimes they laughed until sunrise. Sometimes they talked about absolutely nothing. Other nights, they spoke about everything. Childhood memories, dreams, regrets, the future they secretly wanted. The fears they had never shared with anyone else. Min-jae noticed the little things. He remembered that Ha-eun hated loud restaurants, that she always drank hot chocolate instead of coffee, that she apologized whenever she laughed too loudly, that she always said she was fine, even when she wasn't. He noticed, because he listened. And for the first time in years, Ha-eun felt something unfamiliar. She didn't feel judged. She didn't feel ignored. She didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled across Seoul, they stayed on a voice call for nearly 4 hours. Neither wanted to hang up. Finally, the silence between them became comfortable. Min-jae smiled softly, then asked the question that had been on his mind for weeks. Ha-eun? When can I finally meet you? Her smile disappeared, her fingers tightened around the phone, her heartbeat quickened. Outside, rain continued to fall. Inside, fear quietly entered the room. And for the first time, she didn't know what to say. Ha-eun didn't know what to reply, not because she didn't want to meet him, because she wanted to. Too much. She stared at the message for nearly an hour. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, typing, deleting, typing again. Finally, she replied, I'm really busy these days. Min-jae read the message, then smiled to himself. That's okay. Whenever you're ready. No pressure, no complaints, no guilt, just patience, and somehow that made Ha-eun feel even worse. Days later, she stood inside a clothing store, holding a beautiful cream-colored dress against herself. She looked at the mirror. For one brief moment, she imagined wearing it when she finally met him. She smiled. Then her eyes drifted lower. The smile disappeared. Maybe it doesn't suit me. She quietly placed it back on the rack and walked away. That night, Min-jae sent another message. How about coffee this weekend? Ha-eun's heart skipped. She wanted to say yes. Instead, I'm sorry. Something came up. No problem. We'll find another day. He always understood. Always. Weeks passed. The invitations continued. Sometimes it was coffee, sometimes dinner, sometimes simply, let's take a walk by the park. Every invitation ended the same way. Maybe next time. Work has been exhausting. I'm helping a friend. Can we wait a little longer? Each excuse sounded believable, but after sending them, she always cried. One evening, she stood in front of her bedroom mirror. Holding her phone, she opened the front camera, looked at herself, turned it off, opened it again, took a selfie, stared at it, then deleted it. She whispered quietly, he deserves someone prettier. Min-jae knew something wasn't right. He simply didn't know what. Had he said something wrong? Was she losing interest? Was he the problem? He replayed every conversation in his head, searching for answers, finding none. One Friday evening, he sent one final invitation. There's a small cafe near the river. It's quiet. No crowds. I think you'd like it. I'll be there at 7, only if you want to. Ha-eun read the message over and over. She almost said yes. She even got dressed, applied light makeup, curled her hair, put on the dress she had secretly gone back to buy. She looked beautiful. For the first time in a long while, she almost believed it too. She stood outside her apartment, taxi waiting, phone in her hand, her heart racing. Then the fear returned. What if he looks disappointed? What if he smiles out of pity? What if this is the last time he ever messages me? Her breathing became uneven. She cancelled the taxi, walked back upstairs, changed into her pajamas. Then sent another message. I'm so sorry. I can't make it. Across the city, Min-jae was already sitting by the cafe window. 2 cups of hot chocolate rested on the table. One for him, one for her. Every time the door opened, he looked up, hoping, smiling, only for someone else to walk in. His phone vibrated. He read her message. For several seconds, he simply stared at it. Then he quietly asked the waiter to take away the second cup. He finished his drink alone. Looked once toward the entrance, then walked home through the cold Seoul night. After that night, something changed. Not dramatically, not suddenly, just little by little. The good morning texts disappeared. The late-night conversations became shorter. Replies that once came in seconds now took hours, sometimes an entire day. Ha-eun noticed immediately. She wanted to fix it, but she didn't know how, because every time she thought about meeting him, the fear always won. One night, 2:27 a.m. She picked up her phone. No message. 2:18. Nothing. 2:25. Still nothing. She waited anyway, holding on to hope, watching the screen, until she eventually fell asleep with the phone still in her hands. The next morning, still nothing. The next day, nothing. A week passed, then another. The silence grew heavier. For the first time since they mayhem, came and went, without either of them saying a single word. At first, Ha-eun refused to believe it was over. Every night, she still reached for her phone at 2:17 a.m., almost by instinct. She opened their old chat, read conversations that once made her smile. Sometimes she laughed quietly, only to realize she was laughing alone. She never deleted the messages. She couldn't, because deleting them would feel too much like admitting he was really gone. One evening, she typed a message. How have you been? She stared at it for nearly 5 minutes, then deleted it. Another week passed, then another. Eventually, she stopped checking her phone every few minutes, not because it hurt less, because she was becoming tired of hoping. One rainy afternoon, Ha-eun wandered into a small bookstore, the same kind of quiet place Min-jae would have loved. She picked up a book, opened it. Inside, someone had underlined a sentence. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. She froze, reading it again and again, Something inside her quietly broke. That night, she stood in front of her bedroom mirror, not judging herself, not criticizing herself, just looking, really looking. For the first time, she realized something. The person staring back at her wasn't the problem. The voice inside her head was. The next morning, she made a decision, a small one, but an important one. She would stop waiting and start living. It wasn't dramatic. There was no overnight transformation, no miracle, no perfect moment, just small choices, every single day. She joined a weekend photography class, something she had always wanted to try. She started taking long walks after work. She replaced late-night scrolling with reading. She smiled more, not because life suddenly became perfect, because she was finally being kind to herself. Months passed. Slowly, people around her noticed the difference. Her co-workers complimented her confidence. Her manager offered her a promotion. Her friends said, "You seem happier lately." She smiled, because for the first time, they were right. She bought herself flowers, because she wanted them. She traveled alone to Busan for a weekend, watched the sunrise by the ocean, took photographs she never thought she was capable of taking. She even laughed, without apologizing afterward. Some nights, she still thought about Min-jae. Wondered where he was, whether he was happy, whether he had met someone else. But those thoughts no longer destroyed her. They simply visited, then quietly left again. Nearly 9 months later, her life looked different. Her apartment felt warmer, her smile came easier. Even the loneliness didn't feel quite as heavy anymore. One ordinary evening, she was finishing work when her phone vibrated. Unknown notification. She unlocked the screen. One message, just one word. "Hey." Her heart skipped, not because she still needed him, because she recognized the name immediately. Min-jae. She stared at the screen for a long time. Months ago, she would have answered instantly. Now, she simply breathed. Finally, she replied, "Hi." A few moments later, another message appeared. "Would you be willing to meet?" Ha-eun looked out the cafe window beside her office. The city lights reflected softly against the glass. She smiled. A calm, peaceful smile, then typed, "Okay." For the first time, she wasn't afraid of being seen. She was simply curious to meet the people they had both become. The cafe was exactly how Min-jae had described it months ago. Small, quiet, hidden beside the Han River. The kind of place where conversations didn't have to compete with the noise of the world. Ha-eun arrived first. She chose a seat by the window, the same way she always preferred. She smiled to herself. A few minutes later, the cafe door opened. Min-jae stepped inside. For a brief moment, neither of them moved. They simply looked at each other. Not through a phone screen, not through late-night messages, but in real life, for the first time. He looked almost the same gentle eyes, the same calm smile, only a little older, a little more tired, a little wiser. Ha-eun stood slowly, their eyes met. Then, almost at the same time, they laughed. The nervous kind, the kind that only appears when two strangers somehow know everything about each other. "It's nice to finally meet you," Min-jae smiled. "It took us long enough." She laughed softly. It really did. They sat down. For the first few minutes, the conversation felt awkward, not because they had nothing to say, because they had too much. Eventually, the silence became familiar again, just like those late nights, comfortable, peaceful. They spoke for hours about work, life, the places they had traveled, the dreams they had finally started chasing, everything, and nothing, just like before. As evening settled over Seoul, Min-jae looked out toward the river, then quietly said, "I used to wonder every day what I did wrong." Ha-eun lowered her eyes. "You didn't do anything wrong." He smiled sadly. "I figured that out eventually." A pause. "I left because—" He hesitated. "I thought you didn't want me." The words lingered between them, neither painful nor angry, simply honest. Ha-eun nodded slowly. "I know why you thought that." She looked down at her hands. "I kept pushing you away." A small smile appeared on her lips. "The truth is, I wanted to meet you more than anything." She took a slow breath. "But back then, I was terrified. I kept thinking, what if you met me and realized I wasn't enough?" Her voice grew quieter. "I wasn't afraid of losing you. I was afraid of confirming everything I already believed about myself." Min-jae listened without interrupting, the way he always had. Finally, she looked up. "I did want you, but I didn't want myself back then." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The river flowed quietly beyond the window, people walked past, cars crossed the bridge, life continued. And now, Min-jae asked gently. Ha-eun smiled. Not the uncertain smile from months ago, a peaceful one, the kind that only comes after healing. Now, she paused, I know my worth. I've learned to love the person I used to hide. She looked at him warmly. You were important to me. You always will be. But, she smiled again, I want more. Min-jae frowned slightly. More? She nodded. Not more of you, more for me. I want a life that moves in the same direction as mine. I want someone who's ready for the future I'm building. I want to stop living in what-ifs. She looked toward the river, and I think we met at exactly the right time, for the wrong version of ourselves. Min-jae laughed softly, a bittersweet laugh. I think you're right. He reached into his jacket, pulled out something small, a folded piece of paper. I almost threw this away. He handed it to her. It was the first letter I ever wrote to you. I never sent it. Ha-eun unfolded it carefully. Only one sentence was written inside. I hope one day we meet, exactly as we are. A tear escaped before she could stop it. She smiled through it. It finally happened. It did, Min-jae replied, and I'm glad. They finished their coffee, walked together along the Han River one last time, talking, laughing, remembering, not trying to go back, simply appreciating what they once had. When they reached the subway entrance, they stopped. I guess this is goodbye, Min-jae said. Ha-eun nodded. But this time, it doesn't feel like losing someone. He smiled. No, it feels like thanking them. For a brief second, they hugged, not out of longing, not out of regret, but out of gratitude. Then they let go. Min-jae disappeared into the subway station. Ha-eun continued walking through the quiet streets of Seoul. The night air felt lighter somehow. She looked up at the moon. The same moon that had watched two lonely strangers begin talking at 2:17 a.m. Back then, she thought love meant finding someone who would choose her. Now she understood something different. Sometimes, the greatest love story isn't the one that lasts forever. It's the one that teaches you how to finally choose yourself. She smiled, not because it no longer hurt, but because it no longer hurt the same. The version of her that waited for someone else to complete her had quietly disappeared, and the woman walking forward now was finally enough, the end.